How we doing? Happy Father's Day to everybody who is a father.
First question here on the third row on the left.
Hi, Mark. Guilherme Giovannoni from ESPN Brazil. Last game, Pascal Siakam was playing very well through 3 quarters, but last quarter he had only 1 shot. There was a special adjustment, or you think that the pressure on the ball was enough to get him out of the game?
And none of our adjustments are really personnel specific against this team. As I've mentioned, you kind of have to, they play as a whole and as a unit, and you have to defend them as a whole and as a unit. And that's been our mentality against their team, and you just have to trust that if you do that, you can, limit as best you can the effectiveness of very good players like him. And even if you do that, they're going to get the best of you on certain possessions or certain nights. But we're doing the best we can.
Tim here.
Mark? Tim Reynolds, EAP. Happy Father's Day to you, too.
Same to you.
When you're in the throes of it, like Indiana has the great finish in Game 1. You guys have the great finish in Game 4. Games 2 and 3 kind of went decidedly kind of one way in a lot of ways. It's been a really good 4 games, a lot of back and forth. When you're in it, can you appreciate that at all? Do you take even a second to say this has been a pretty good first 4 games?
We just appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate the opportunity to play, this deep into the season. If you're playing this deep into the season, your opponent is going to be really good. They've won 12 games to get to this point, just like we have. You just know it's going to be unbelievable level. And there's definitely times in it where it's like, man, this is high, high level. And I've definitely felt that not only in this series, but in multiple series. But we're also trying to make the next best decision, win the next possession. So we're zoomed in on that as well.
Joe?
Warren, The Athletic. Happy Father's Day to you as well.
Yep, same to you.
You talked after Game 4 about the lineup change, and you said you wanted to get Isaiah more minutes. So I guess I have 2 questions about this. Did that change enable you to sort of tinker with the rotation so Shea had more in the tank in the fourth quarter? And then also, prior to that, your starters had really dominated in their minutes, and then they didn't with the new change. So how do you reconcile with that going into Game 5?
Well, every game's different, first of all. But what I'd say is, the initial thought kind of had its desired effect, to your point, in terms of the starts we were able to get off of. But your starting lineup also is the first rotation decision you're making and has domino effects to the rest of your rotation. And I thought, in that game, we benefited from starting the rotation that way, even though to start the game, they were really, we gave up 20 points in the first 5 minutes, which isn't ideal. So it's a little bit of both, but we just thought it gave us the best chance to win Game 4 after looking back at the first 3 games. But every game's different. Like we've done that after wins, after losses throughout these series. We move things around pretty quickly to try to stay unpredictable and also to try to, scrape for every advantage we can, in what turns out to be close games.
Dan, third row on the right.
Dan Devine, Yahoo Sports. Kind of along those lines, I think before 2 games ago, Alex had only gone 30-plus minutes twice the whole season. Both of the last 2 games, 30-plus minutes. I know you've talked about kind of needing to keep the governor on him a little bit, maybe even to protect him from himself sometimes. How do you balance that preservation versus kind of going for the kill with his minutes this time of year?
I haven't talked about being conservative with him at all this time of year. I think this is the time you got to do everything you can to try to win the games, and pull out all the stops. So that's been the mentality. He's been great. The extra rest in the finals for all of the players is a consideration. You get a lot of rest in between these games, which has its advantages and disadvantages. But one of the advantages is the ability for everybody to recover and be as fresh as possible going into the game.
Joel?
Joel Lorenzi, the Oklahoman.
Is that your ringtone? Nice. It's very pacifying.
Mark, what have you seen from, I know you talked about Chet's temperament and sort of how he draws on performances that maybe he's not very fond of. What have you seen from both him and Jalen this postseason after games that maybe they're not very okay with in their eyes?
the same as always. I mean, they're unbelievable competitors. They grow through their experiences. They just take a great approach to being growing players on a big stage, playing in the best basketball you can imagine. And I think, zooming out from just them, I mean, these playoff series, at no point during the regular season do you play a great team 4 straight times, with the ability for that team to lock in on tendencies and change tactics and all the things that happen in a playoff series. And so as a result of that, you're just going to get pushed to the limit, in these series. When you play a really, really good team, a great team over and over and over again, your opponent gets pushed to the limit by you in the same way. And we've seen that now in multiple series where we've gotten taken to the limit by our opponent and vice versa. We've done that to people as well. And think understanding that's what it is and embracing that and understanding that there's nothing easy about that. It's very uncomfortable for individual players and for the team collectively. And like I said, the awareness of that and then the mentality of embracing that challenge is critical, and we have players that embrace challenges, and that serves us well in terms of being able to keep our foot on the gas when we're doing well or bounce back, when we're not.
Michael, Tim, and Mark.
Michael Grange from Sportsnet Toronto. What's it like, not only yourself as a first-time head coach? I know you can't really reflect in the middle of a series, but also a team that's so young relatively to be in a finals. How are they responding to all those challenges? Just physically, mentally absorbing, the game plan flips, all these kinds of things. Like, just stepping away from wins and losses. How does your group kind of managing it?
I think pretty well. I think it's challenging. It is our first time going through it, so there's new experiences that we're going through. But I think our default approach serves us well when we're in new situations and things like that. But it's challenging. We're playing against a great team that's pushing us to the limit. Hopefully, we're pushing them to the limit in the same way. But there's nothing comfortable, about these games. It's a challenging opponent that's really testing us. And again, we just need to approach those challenges as opportunities. That's what our guys do. They do a great job of it. And we have to be better. We did not control that game. We won it, fortunately, but we did not control that game. And so we have to almost approach this like a loss, in terms of really needing to look in the mirror and make some critical adjustments if we want to give ourselves a better chance to control Game 5 and not just hope to win it.
Tim?
McMahon, ESPN. How have you seen Dub's game and impact evolve in the few years that you've had him all around, and specifically as a guy who you can say, hey, you're running point, you're a primary initiator and take pressure off of Shea?
Yeah, I mean, when he started with us, and this has been our approach with most players, it's not like we just hand them the ball. We put them in the system first, and the guys that are really efficient in the system, they end up banging the door down, and they kind of show you that they need more. And he was in that category. He came off the bench early on, and we weren't pushing every button for him, but he just kept showing the ability to take more of a load, and his efficiency was not dropping off, and his impact wasn't dropping off. If anything, it was increasing, and usually, when those guys are doing that, they're declaring themselves, and he certainly declared himself. And now he's learning, all the lessons to be learned in that role. I thought in Game 3, his first stint was one of his worst stints of the series, and, he kind of catches his breath and reflects on that, and he had a much better stint later in that game, and then came out and was really big time for us in Game 4. Not only his creation, but just some of the simple plays he made to put his teammates in advantages. As much as Shea, kind of closed the game, I thought he really kept us afloat in a lot of different periods of that game. And but I mean, he's still a third-year player. He's still learning. He's still growing. And like I said, this is challenging. Playing a great team over and over again.
Mark, final question.
Coach Mark Spears, ESPN's Landscape. Happy Father's Day. I want to ask you about Coach Mac's presence in the hallway. Been there since the New Orleans Hornets were playing here. And also, I don't know if he was kind of pretty decorated women's basketball coach, high school coach here. I don't know if he ever talked about coaching and knew about that background, but just his presence and then also him as a coach.
Yeah, he'll pop me with some advice from time to time, and I take note. we take pride in and this isn't like our idea from a basketball standpoint, but we organizationally and as a city take pride in people having a first-class experience when they're here. Hopefully you guys feel that. Hopefully our fans feel that. We want the other teams to feel like that. We want this to be a great basketball environment and a great basketball experience for anybody that's here, whether they play for us or not. And he's in the visiting team section there, and I think he's a small contributor to that, in the most subtle ways. I mean, he's a great guy to interact with. I think he treats everybody with respect and dignity, and I think everybody, in that crew, they help create a great environment to have great fans. We have great fans, and they support that in their own ways. So it's not only him, but he's a great presence. I love hanging with him.
Thank you, Coach.